So over the years, we've sold hundreds and hundreds of S631 systems to surveyors all over Canada, US, and even across the world. And probably the most important factor that we hear from them is how repeatable the equipment is and how much they can rely on it. Because when you're doing a survey and you're signing your life away on a survey plan, you're taking on all the responsibility and liability that comes with that. So if you can't trust your equipment and you can't trust the results it's giving you, you can't use it in your day-to-day practice. So what we want to do in today's video is show you how reliable RTK equipment is, show you some of the misconceptions that people often have with it, and some of the fair critiques we've had on other videos where we're testing out our RTK equipment, because we want to give you all of the information you need in order to make a purchase and have the equipment that you need in the field that you can actually trust and rely on. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to respond to some of the comments that we've got on some of our other videos, explain some misconceptions that come with RTK and reliability, get into some test results that we've done, and kind of give you guys the chance to respond to and tell us what you want to see from our future repeatability videos. So with that in mind, let's get into some of the comments that we've got. So the first thing I wanted to do in this video is I wanted to respond to some of the comments that we get on our videos. And we get tons of comments and I love seeing them and I love responding to them. I try to respond to every comment that I do see out there. So please let me know what you think of our videos. We only want to make them better for you. But in particular, there's one kind of video that I get a lot of comments on, and they have a lot of common threads on them that I kind of want to relate to this repeatability video. And that's our time to fix videos where we compare the Trimble and the Leicas and all sorts of different manufacturers to the Hemisphere receivers. And that's people asking, we have these time to fix, but how do we know that the shots that we're taking are reliable? And we have made a repeatability video in the past, and we've gotten some comments there that we're going to improve upon today, but it's really boring to watch those videos. And on top of that, it takes a lot of work. So behind me, you can probably see a million sticky notes. I also have a whiteboard over here and a notebook. I have way too many things to do in a given day. So it's kind of difficult to find time to make these more intensive videos, but we're going to try to do that today. And I'm going to respond to some of your comments here. So the first comment I want to take a look at here is from RTman, and it was on one of our time to fix videos. And he asked, when you compare the performance of equipment, it's not enough to just compare only the time of obtaining a fixed solution. It's necessary to check the correctness of the coordinates. It's a very, very good point. If you can't rely on the shot, it doesn't matter how fast it's coming. You could determine the coordinates with a high precision total station and then check how well the GNSS receivers correctly determine these coordinates, not just do one repetition. That's when it will be a valid test. Great points, RTman. I'm going to make two arguments here. One is, if I had to do multiple shots, it would take me a really long time. And as I mentioned, I'm a very busy guy. Unfortunately, if I had more time to spend on the videos, I would. And number two is, when we're arguing with the total station, and I'm going to get a bit more into it on the results section, comparing RTK and total station data is a bit tricky and can be a bit misleading. Because we're relying on control points and tying into control, there's going to be some operator influence, and it's a bit misleading to compare the two as they are completely different technologies. We're getting similar results, so you can, but for our videos, and I'll make the argument later on, I don't think we need to be doing that. Another user, Nick Orr here, said, these tests don't prove anything. Maybe it only proves that the Hemisphere algorithm is more relaxed compared to Trimble, Leica, etc. And then he argues also your repeatability tests took place in not so difficult places. A true repeatability test would include a tightly adjusted total station network and measurements in different hours and days. And he would also like to see some other receivers tested. We're working on getting receivers in all the time. It kind of relies on what people trade in and what people send us. But his point on having different hours and days to show the repeatability is a great point. When you have a single point shot, you're going to have the same satellite configuration, and if you do them back to back, you're not really going to be showing anything different because there's no new inputs on the RTK engine. So I'll get into our tests later on here, but great point. We do need to show you these shots over different times and days. He also mentioned that maybe the Hemisphere algorithm is more relaxed compared to Trimble, and that's why it can fix faster. Now I'll show you the results. I would argue this isn't the case. It's also very hard to show on camera if an algorithm is more relaxed or tighter or more strict than other algorithms. I would argue we need to kidnap a couple of engineers, hold them in a room for a while to give us those secrets. But I'm hoping the results later on in this video will show you that the Hemisphere one is not relaxed. We're not cutting any corners or anything like that. There's a lot of redundancies that go into there. And the final comment that, kind of has this common thread I saw in all these time to fix videos is from JRR2286, who said, bias test, conditions are different for both receivers, software is not the same for both receivers, software settings unknown, software not from the same manufacturer. He's saying we have a million unknowns. I don't normally show it on camera. I'm going to make an argument, JRR, that a lot of these are A, misconceptions, and B, kind of a misunderstanding a bit on what's happening with RTK. Your software, your field software, has zero connection to how your receivers work. The time to fix is completely dependent on the board and the engine on board the receiver. Your software, doesn't matter if it's Carlson, doesn't matter if it's Field Genius, Trimble Access, Top Gun Magnet, anybody's software, doesn't matter if it's an NMEA Bluetooth driver, has zero relevance on how a position is calculated. Your receiver is feeding that information to the software, and the software is a graphical output of that information. So it has no bearing on that. As for the settings unknown, we don't show it on video because, again, I try to keep the video shorter, but what we do for all of our videos is we try to make it as fair as possible. So we set up a base station, they're right next to each other. We use the latest and most recommended signals from the manufacturer, and we try to make it as fair as possible. So when we do the time to fix, we do them back to back on the same point. That's why we use that little stand in the video. But we try to make these settings as fair as possible. So, we're not trying to mislead you guys on that one. It's just we're trying to make an entertaining video. So maybe we'll try to put some results or numbers that you guys can go look at yourselves to verify them. So with that in mind, I'm gonna go show you our setup that we did for this test and kind of explain how we're gonna do our repeatability test today, and then I'll get into the results. So let's head over to our setup. All right, so as I mentioned, I wanna kind of show you guys what we did for our repeatability test and how we did it so that you have a chance to respond and tell us how you'd like it to be changed. And here's the things I did and why I did them. So first one is we mounted this to a pole. The reason for that is to ensure that there's no movement, there's no human influence on our position. Number two is I set up my rover here. I've connected up to our Stormcaster base that's in our office. So we're using RTCM3 MSM, the latest signal. We're using all constellations enabled, and this is going to give us a short baseline. Is that the office is right behind my lovely cameraman Arden here. And that short baseline means we're not gonna have any influence or have to account for that when we do our results here. And the third thing we did is we recorded a position once every second. The reason we did that is to show you that there's no tricks. We're not averaging any points. There's nothing like that. We took a point for one observation every 30 seconds. The next thing we did is that we did a factory reset halfway through our day. So we started recording around 7:30, 7:45 a.m. We recorded till noon when I broke for lunch. I did a full factory reset on the unit. This is gonna force the unit to completely recalculate its position and have no access to its previous data for its fixed solution. And then finally, we recorded over the full course of the day. This allowed the satellites to change where they're located. We get new satellite geometry, forcing us to calculate new positions. So with all of those in mind, let's head into the office and kind of see what our results look like. Right before I get into the results, I just quickly want to give you guys an explanation on what makes the 631 a bit more unique than other RTK receivers on the market, and that's the fact that it has the SureFix RTK engine. And what SureFix is it takes the satellite data that it's computing for its RTK solution, and it runs it through two independent and different RTK engines at the same time on the board. So you're calculating the position in two different methods, and if those engines don't agree on the position, it's not going to report a fixed solution. And in fact, the odds of both engines giving you an incorrect solution at the same time is so low that you're more likely to be hit by lightning. And in fact, it's so low that you're more likely to win the lottery a couple of times before you're going to have a bad fix in an open sky situation. So what this means is with the 631, and we're going to get into some of the repeatability results here, you're almost never going to see a bad fix if you have SureFix enabled, meaning that you can confidently sign your life away with this receiver and the data it's giving you on your survey plan. So with that in mind, let's actually see what the results look like here. Now that I've run back inside here to sit at the computer and look at our results, I'm going to mention one other thing, and that is the test we did today it's as wide open the sky as possible. There should be no obstructions. It's a little bit tricky based on where we were. There's a building nearby, but it should be no challenge at all for a 7th gen receiver like the 631. I've run back inside here, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a look at the easting position first. And just as I said outside, it's exactly as we expected. It's very stable. We have no deviations, and there's nothing outside of our expected limits. So on my graph here, what you can see is the black dashed line that represents our 8 millimeters, our plus minus confidence interval for 95%. That middle solid black line, that's the median position. So for our easting, we had 697,174.875 meters, plus or minus 2 millimeters over the full course of the day. It was very stable, exactly as I'd expect for RTK. Similar results were found for our northing. We had these nice in the morning and afternoon. We saw similar results. We had 566,623.405 meters, again, plus or minus 2 millimeters, just like the easting. And as you can see, even after we've done the reset, which I noted with this kind of blue dash line, the results are pretty stable for both of them. We don't see any huge deviations. It's nice and stable. We have lots of consistent points, and they're all gathered nicely around our median position. Finally, for our elevation, we saw similar results, the only difference being for RTK, specification is no longer plus minus 8 millimeters, it's plus minus 15 millimeters, but again, all of our points fell within our manufacturer's spec. There's a little bit more instability in the vertical. That's as expected with RTK. It's not as good in the vertical as it is in the horizontal, but it's still very, very repeatable and very consistent for those results over the full course of the day, before and after our reset. Now, we now know our results are pretty stable for this open sky test. And again, if you guys want to see different kinds of data or different statistics, let me know down in the comments below. So when we go under trees and we go near buildings, we can add to that. But as I mentioned earlier when I was responding to some of these comments, I'm going to make the argument that we don't actually need to break a total station out to perform a check shot. And that's because RTK is a relative positioning technique. As long as these positions are stable before and after a reset, there's no apparent bias between two resets, there's no apparent bias over the course of the day, I'm going to make the argument, and you can disagree with me all you want in the comments down below. I'm more than happy to kind of debate this and flesh it out. If we need to do a total station one, I'm totally fine changing to that. But I'm going to make the argument that because it's stable, if you properly tie into your control network with RTK, especially with the Athena RTK engine, we don't need to break the total station out. Again, if you disagree with me, let me know and explain why you disagree with me in the comments down below. I want to kind of get into this debate and figure out if we're doing it the best way possible. So that's the results of our test. It's a bit limited today. We did get 2.5 feet of snow, kind of canceled some plans. I wanted to do another day of data, but I just ran out of time and the weather was not cooperating as much. So what we're going to do moving forward here is we're going to do this kind of test in a couple of different environments. So we're going to do it in pine trees, we're going to do it under leafy trees, and we're going to do it near buildings. Now, as you saw from the video when I was outside, it was in the middle of winter in Canada when I'm filming this video. In fact, it's November 27th. I'm not going to have any leaves for the next probably 5 months. So now's the time to get this test perfectly figured out for you guys and make sure we get all the data and information that you need. So give it to me down in the comments. And if you like this kind of content and you want to see more surveying videos like this, check out our next video. It's somewhere around here. And I've also put in the description our last repeatability video. If you think I'm a complete clown, go check that one out. It's probably worse. I'll see you on the next one.